Hey folks, Nemesis can be a hard game to play your first time out. As you know, I lose more games than I win, but in doing so, I have picked up on a few things that aren't super obvious your first couple of games. So here are my top 5 beginner strategy tips for Nemesis. It's very tempting to start the game rushing to all 4 corners, but one thing you want to avoid is putting out too many intruders before you're ready to handle them. It's better early on, anyway, to move in groups so that you can avoid putting out too much noise. And while you do start with a weapon, attacking anything bigger than a creeper in the first few rounds is generally not a great idea. Unless you need an intruder corpse and you know where the lab is, running away until you're better equipped is a perfectly fine choice. At the beginning of the game, it seems like you have all the time in the world, but you'll soon realize just how quickly that turn tracker actually moves. Now, you don't want to backtrack in this game if you can help it. You've got a mission and it's best to stick to it, so try to plan out a path that will involve you turning around as few times as possible. This means that one group is going to need to go to the engines while the other group goes to the helm. And yes, you don't necessarily know if you can trust your other crewmates, but at least at the start of the game, you're going to have to work together if you want to get everything done. Both hibernation and escape pods force you to make a noise roll before you can use them. So you're going to want to make sure you can either avoid an encounter or handle what comes. Avoiding an encounter can be done by triggering encounters in neighboring rooms to reduce the noise levels in the hibernation or escape pod rooms. This is risky, but if you can pull it off and survive, it can be pretty useful. Now, if you do trigger an encounter, your best bet is to have a taser, because this guarantees that the intruder retreats and you'll be free to try again, this time with no noise around you. At the beginning of the game, don't worry too much about fires or malfunctions. I mean, try to avoid getting hurt by the fires, obviously, but unless you need the room that the malfunction is in, it's kind of just fine to ignore. That is, until you have too many on the board. See, there are more malfunction than fire exploration tokens, so fixing 1 or 2 of them when it's convenient is a good idea. But what you're really watching out for, the real danger, is the event cards that add multiple fires or malfunctions all at once. So for me, a good rule of thumb is to make sure there are no more than 5 of either token on the board at any given time. Okay, you almost never want to be contaminated, but you don't have to rush to get rid of contamination cards either. For starters, the rest action can potentially make things worse, so if you only have 1 contamination card, it's okay to kind of just leave it for a little while. In my opinion, alcohol is the best way to deal with these cards because you can get rid of the blank ones, and if you are infected, you'll find out without triggering the infection. But also, if you only have 1 contamination card, even if it's infected at the end of the game, you're actually in a pretty good shape. You only really need to start worrying if you have 3 contamination cards, or 2 if you know you're infected. So those are my top 5 beginner strategy tips for Nemesis. If you want a little bit more information, I found this great BGG thread that goes into all the probabilities for contamination, intruder attacks, weapons, all kinds of good stuff. It is a bit of an info dump, so I don't recommend it for beginners, but if you get into that kind of crunchy math, it can be a very valuable resource. Link in the description. In any case, if you are a rules lawyer and are watching this video early, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, you're a little behind the pack, so maybe you want to remedy that, but thank you for watching anyway. And I'll see you next time. Bye.